What's up, everybody? I'm going to go ahead and forewarn you. This is potentially going to be a lengthy video. I've recorded this once already and actually forgot to have my microphone on. I'm dumb. So for about the next, hopefully 10 minutes or less, I'm going to describe to you how to get started with the anti-cheat, how to load it up, what to do, how to configure it, and hopefully get you off your feet. So if you're using Vortex, the mod manager, if you've downloaded it from Nexus, this is probably the best way to manage that mod unless you're doing it manually. You can go up to the top and do mod staging folder. This can be every single mod that you've ever downloaded, basically in a BepInEx plugins format, and I'll show you what that means here in a minute. So for instance, we have Better Wards, Better Trader, Better Continents. This is everything that I've installed, whether it's enabled, disabled, or anything like that on the side here. The fastest way to jump to a singular mod is going to be clicking this and opening the file manager, which will take you to specifically that exact mod. In this case, I clicked Automatic Door Mod. We have all of these installed. This will be Build Share, Def Handy Ward, Floxy's Modern Homes. Any of these files are going to be found in this folder. These are going to be very similar to how the BepInEx plugins folder is structured for manually installing, and of course R2 Modman, which is actually going to be very similar to the manually installed process. So you can launch this either through modded or vanilla versions. This will load any of your enabled plugins, which will grab all of the files needed and load it into the game. So if you're using Vortex, this will be how you find the anti-cheat files. You can go straight to the anti-cheat folder and just grab whatever you need. Okay, and in R2, if you have a profile, you're going to select that profile. Make sure that if the anti-cheat, like it is here, is installed in this folder, you're like, oh, well, I want to know where this is, right? Fastest way, in my opinion, to get there is Settings, Browse Profile Folder. This is very similar to the manual install process as far as the file structure. Best mod manager, in my opinion, is R2 over Vortex any day. It allows you to manually install things along with install things directly from Thunderstore, which has a specific strict structure on how they ask you to upload these. So BepInEx plugins, you're going to find the anti-cheat, in this case, installed here. These are the Thunderstore required files. You can choose to ignore these or read them if you want. The README is the same thing that you're going to find on the Thunderstore page. You can open this up and take a look at it. It'll tell you all the features, anything that they have defined as far as, links, configs, updates, whatever they have. So the DLL itself is going to be inside of a folder. If you notice, R2 Mod Manager puts it in a folder for you. It does not care. Most mods will not care that it's inside of a folder as long as it's alongside whatever files it needs. In this case, I don't need these files, but they are alongside of it. For instance, Randy Knapp's Epic Loot, it needs all of these additional files, as well as, the things that Thunderstore needs, which is the icon, the manifest, and the README. Make sure that the DLL is alongside whatever files are required. This is the easiest way to manage your files. You can copy straight from this folder into whatever you have on your server, if it requires to be a server and client-side mod, or if it's recommended to put on both. So, because I install things manually, I'm going to go into my specific folder and show you kind of how these things work instead of launching from R2. But R2 will get you to the same results, or very close to the same results as manually installing this. We are going to go specifically to my client testing folder, which is a folder that contains the Valheim exe, which I just copied from my default game folder into a folder on my desktop. So BepInEx is installed here. We have the plugins. I called mine just AzuAnticheat, so it stays up at the top. The anti-cheat, upon first load, if you have the DLL inside of a folder or even outside of the folder here, boot the game up at least once. Make sure that this folder for BepInEx plugins contains, and I do recommend contains, all of the admin tools as well as anything that you want anyone else to have. Main reason why is because it's way easier to delete what you don't want than it is to manually type out all the additional stuff that the admin has versus that the client doesn't, right? So for this case, Easy Spawner, I would recommend blocking. SK Tool, I'd recommend blocking from a normal person having. But I do have them in this folder for sake of argument, and I'll show you why. So the anti-cheat here, when you first launch the game, it'll create these two files if they don't already exist, and it'll actually create it into an AzuAnticheat folder for you if the DLL is outside of a folder. If you have the folder named something else, it'll create the AzuAnticheat folder for you and drop these files in here. So, the BEP names and the DLL names. What's the difference? The DLL name is literally what you're seeing right here, AzuAnticheat.dll, right? The BEPIN name is what the BEPINX chain loader reads. It's inside of brackets with the name itself and then space with whatever the version is. It launches alongside the game. So these files get automatically populated each time the client launches the game. So it will always have the most up-to-date list of BEPIN names, DLL names that the client has launched with, right? So without further ado, you can just, once it's installed, you put it in the folders, you tell the client, however you're distributing this out to them, just know that this is the manual way to do it. So however you need to modify this process for your particular server, you can do it that way. The anti-cheat with the 1.2 update will not require you to launch this as an admin. You can just launch the game. And that tiny little window that just popped up, we'll see it down here. It's the BEPINX. This is what's called the chain loader. If you just double click in here, you can stop it for a second. Map teleport, AzuAnticheat. This is what we're pulling from when I say the BEPIN name. This is the BEPINX chain loader name. As you can see, it says BEPINX right here. And, oh, look at that, chain loader. This is what you're going to need to copy and paste onto the server for whitelisted or blacklisted or whatever, as well as the DLL name. This is where you can get them manually if you have one that's for whatever reason not being picked up at those two files that I just mentioned. So if you've double clicked in here, this actually stops your game. As you can see, it's not loaded. If you're like, oh man, I broke it, my game, you don't have to relaunch it. Just click once, click enter, and it'll continue loading. Okay, I do recommend anytime you launch the game that you pull this off to the side or somewhere that's, if you have a separate screen, that you can take a look at this as the game is running. Most things that you're going to find in here, if it's yellow text, typically you don't really have to worry about it. Kind of like this only custom filters thing that just popped up. Particle system not spawned. Things like this are warnings. They are not errors. That does not mean that anything is going to break. It just means that something could potentially break because of this. So be careful, make sure you're reading it at least and are aware. In my case, Alga, which I have installed, it iterates through all of your characters, so it gets these nice little fancy pictures. Some of my characters are actually wearing armor, like in this case, Armor Iron Chest Test, that does not actually have a mesh, not necessarily. So I got an error. Unity says, hey, there's a problem. There's not really a problem, but, you know, it lets us know that there could be, right? So we have the anti-cheat installed. We launched the game. Well, it populated those files for us. We're going to go into BEPINX plugins, anti-cheat, and you'll notice that that's 340. It's 3:41 my time in the morning. So these two files just populated. If we open these, I do recommend that you open these not with just double-click, boom, notepad. I recommend that you right-click. If you have another notepad editor, I do recommend at least Notepad++. If you have something else that supports UTF-8 or UTF-16, I highly recommend. That is because this will prevent issues with DLL names that might have special characters in it, like Jotunlib, for example, or Jotun, for example. Edit with Notepad++. You're going to see every single BEPIN name that just loaded. You can copy and paste this to your server. And right here, same thing. DLL names. This is every single DLL that just loaded. You can copy and paste this to your server. So, to show you what I mean, is on the server, if you've put the anti-cheat on the server, you're going to get files, which will be auto-generated in this folder. As you can see, they don't exist yet, and that's because I actually haven't launched my server yet, right? So this is my testing server. Feel free to use it anytime, or if you need a test server to run something, let me know. If I'm not actively using this, feel free to use this server as you need. So I'll go ahead and launch it. We'll close out the game so we don't have all that in the background. So as you can see, the AzuAnticheat file just loaded. If you're using something, make sure that you refresh this. So as you notice, we just got more files. So the AzuAnticheat, again, if you're using WinSCP, you're able to choose whatever your editor is. If you're not using WinSCP and for whatever reason you cannot choose your own custom editor, do not use the internal editor. Do not use a normal notepad, especially if you use anything that installs with Jotun. Okay, I'll reiterate. Anything that is installed that requires Jotun, I highly recommend that if you don't have any of those for whatever reason available in your FTP client, make sure that you download this file. You can either click and download, and now it's on the client side, right? So navigate to whatever folder that is. Anyway, just make sure that you're updating this and running and editing with some kind of notepad editor or text editor in general that supports UTF-8 or UTF-16. Things that do are Visual Studio Code. Notepad++ in my case. Notepad++ is very, very lightweight, and it supports UTF-8 and UTF-16 if you need it. Okay, that is kind of my go-to of choice of a very quick notepad editor. So I tend to edit because I'm able to, with WinSCP, I'm able to edit directly on the server. So anytime I click save, it's going to save it for me. So this is my Azu admin tool. I actually clicked the wrong one. That's my fault. It's supposed to be the anti-cheat. Notepad++ here. We're going to see that we have force server config is defaulted to true. Moderator bypassing the explore map cheat is defaulted to false. Bypassing damage cheat is defaulted to false. Change these if you need to. Okay. Also, it defaults to the whitelist. Change it if you want to use the blacklist. But you have to reboot your server if you choose the blacklist. Okay. The files need to be regenerated because it generates a completely different list for you. It actually creates a new file called the blacklist instead of the whitelist. Right. So configure this to your needs. Short, sweet, simple. So, for instance, I have the whitelist and the webhook. Let's just quickly take a look at the webhook. And you're saying, hey, well, what is a webhook, right? This is Discord webhooks. This is what is going to log this to the Discord for you. I have pre-populated this with my Discord's link for the multiverse. This is a collaborative Discord that says, who's cheating in what servers, and you can see who those people are and maybe even block them on your server before, this server decides to ban them and then they jump into your server, right? It's kind of preemptive. It helps out. So you can choose to use this link or not choose to use this link. Directions are going to be found in these files for you. My Discord link to be able to join is here. This one should not expire. If it does, please contact me directly and I'll get you into the server. So, how do you get a Discord webhook? How do I get my own? How do I make my own? What can I do with that, right? So right click on whatever your server is, server settings, and integrations. You're going to find webhooks here. You can either define a brand new one, or you can use an existing one. If you have an existing one that you would love, just copy the webhook URL. Okay, we can close this out. And if you don't want to use mine, you can just Control A, Control V, and now you have yours. If you do want to use mine, just go to a new line and paste, and then make sure you delete this up here. Okay, and delete any white space. That way you only have 2 lines as defined here, with no white space on the end or anything. This will post to both webhook links. If you have a third one, you can post a third one. A fourth one, you can post a fourth one. Whatever you want to do here. I'm actually not going to save this file because the default works for me. The moderator list works just like the admin list. The admin list, at least on most gPortal servers, will be found here. It requires Steam IDs. How do you get a Steam 64 ID? You can do Steam ID Pro here. And then, for instance, you could type in Azumatt, whatever. This is my profile. There's all my Steam IDs. You can grab all that information, copy paste it here, right? Same thing with moderator list.txt. again, just make sure you're using the custom notepad editor that you have. It says put moderator Steam IDs in this file. Works just like admin list.txt. So we're going to say like 765, 611, blah, 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 whatever the other numbers are. You're going to separate these by new lines. So new user goes on a new line, new user goes on a new line. And if you're using Notepad, you'll be able to see each line here, and you'll be able to quickly highlight everything and, change this file to your needs. Okay? So moderators only bypass DLLs. They do not bypass cheats. Keep that in mind. So if you have a custom DLL that a moderator might need or might want, define it. Give it to them. They'll bypass DLLs. Okay? Main reason why I made it this way is because certain servers want moderators to not be able to use the common cheat mods, but only the ones that they've created for that server, let's say. If this needs to be revised, please give me some feedback. Let me know. But that outlines the 3 files on the server that you're going to need to know about, along with the 4th file, which is the default configuration. Configure all this to your needs, launch your server, get hooked up. So, the AzuAnticheat no longer needs to be launched as the admin. So we're going to say, oh, well, how do I, define the files on the server, right? You're going to go back quickly to these files here. We're going to right-click, edit with Notepad, copy this. We're going to go to the dark world testing, at least in my case. I have a whitelisted DLLs text, edit with Notepad. This file gets pre-populated with whatever I have specified, whether it's a whitelist or a blacklist. I'll give you a generic thing that populates, right? Follow the instructions up at the top if you need to, or you could just copy and paste what you have in these 2 files, okay? So, for instance, Jotun here, as you can see, has that umlaut with the O, the 2 dots on top. That is a special character. That's why I recommend UTF-8 and UTF-16 supported editors. Same thing with Ragnar's Ragnarok. So, I tend to, because I don't need the instructions, I just Control-A, Control-V. Now, this is all of my weapon names that I just pulled from my client-side file. These files will only be generated client-side. I'll iterate that one more time. So, the DLLs, copy, highlight, Control-A, Control-C, copy, paste, do whatever you need to do, okay? I'm going to go back to the whitelisted DLLs, which is my server file, paste. Delete line 72 in my case. That is that blank line. Make sure there isn't a blank one in there because it could potentially cause some errors. So Control S or save, which will be this right here, or save all, or file, save as, however you need to get this done. Either way, make sure this is the file that is on your server and is supported. In my case, mine said progress has been completed and has uploaded correctly to the server. So here, I've got my whitelist defined. I've got my webhook. I've got my moderator list, which is blank. I've got my admin list, which is blank, and that's because we're about to do some testing. So I've got all of that configured. I've got my server up, ready. Boom, my server's on. It's ready. It's moving. Just go ahead, run this. As I mentioned, grab this and pull this to the side so you can see kind of just what's going on. Game's going to launch, and I'm not going to make you guys suffer through this. I'm just going to load up once we get loaded into the game. Alright, so now that you're loaded into the game, you're like, well, what now? Just simply sign into your server. If you use Quick Connect, I recommend that you use Quick Connect so you can one-click or however you're getting into your server quickly. Load up your character, and as we see in our client logs here, we're going to see all of this crazy stuff happening, right? Oh, it says I'm not an admin. Jotun detected I'm not an admin. The anti-cheat is about to. It's going to load up all the files. The anti-cheat will only spit out if you are an admin. I don't spit out if you're not. Sending DLLs, player DLLs loaded. Server has the anti-cheat installed, so we're A-OK. We didn't get any version errors. We didn't get anything wrong. So once you come into the server, you're going to be able to run around, do whatever, assuming that you have every single file or less that's on the whitelist. Okay? So if you have a file that's not on the whitelist, you will be kicked for it. In this case, we have my testing area here, which is Better Wards is pushing me out now. So, good stuff, right? I'm in the file, or I'm in the server. I have all the files I need. But let's say, well, I'm not an admin, right? What happens if I cheat? You're going to get kicked. So let's say, even though I have this mod whitelisted on the server, I'm just in Joe Smo. I'm not an admin. I'm not a moderator. I'm not anything like that. So what happens if I just, no placement costs, right? Server kicks me out. Clients will be notified what kicked them. So if they say, hey, I have no clue, it didn't tell me, they're most likely lying to you, okay? So we're going to test this one more time. We're going to test a typical cheat engine that a lot of people tend to download, which is WeMod. Again, I'm going to pull that window off to the side. And I realize that we're getting kind of up there in the video time. Hopefully this is a thorough explanation of how this mod works, what we need to do to get it set up. But I shouldn't be taking too much more of your time. Just give me 1 second. Alright, so we're loaded up into the game. We're about ready to launch into the server. But I'm one of those fancy dancy people that just wants to cheat, right? So we have WeMod. WeMod has mods for pretty much any game. Valheim just happens to be one of them. God mode, unlimited health, player speed, all of this stuff based on hotkeys as well. Look at that, that's fancy. It's a super awesome cheat mod if you're looking to play a single player game or anything like that, but ideally we don't want stuff like this in our server. So I'm going to launch up the game, get ready to join the server, and I'm going to show you kind of what happens. If someone has WeMod launched, Art Money launched, Valhack, anything like that, they'll be kicked. So I'm going to pause the video for a second, and we'll just skip ahead to when I spawn. Alright, y'all. So, spawned in. We're fresh. We're ready. And I'm expecting to be kicked here soon. And I am. Cheat engine. Cheat detected. Well, to the client, they're just like, oh, cheat engine. What does that mean? That's WeMod. That's Art Money. That's any of those things. Okay? On the server, you're going to be able to see all of this information. What kicked them? Why? How? On the BepInEx log output log. Okay? This file is going to be kind of your go-to for any mod issues, errors, things that get kicked with versions, so on and so forth. Right? So, we have on this, we have the client loaded list of DLLs running client side. We have build camera DLL. We have all this stuff. Bepin names client side. Here's all the Bepin names. That's everything that's going to be loaded in. Boom. Right? All of this information can be found here. You're going to have player bypass, everything that you're going to be able to see. Okay? So, we got kicked. What does that mean? That means that if you have a Discord webhook defined, we get a nice little notification straight to wherever our Discord webhook is linking that says, why did they get kicked? We got kicked because we launched WeMod. Or because we used banned DLL in this case. Or, as we go up, we did way too much damage based on what the servers defined. We've done, various different things. Cheat detected. Look, 17,000 damage. You have been kicked. Massive damage detected. This is the errors that they're going to receive using God mode, exploring the map. Anything that is not allowed. We have just configured our anti-cheat successfully. Change it, modify your whitelist, change your blacklist, however you want it to get it to work. Just make sure you're using Bepin names and DLL names. We'll be able to block based on both, as well as processes, and the hashes of those processes will be blocked. So anything like WeMod or Art Money or Valhack will hopefully, cross fingers, be successfully blocked by the anti-cheat. People who want to cheat really bad probably will be able to cheat. This is just an anti-dickhead mod to kind of block out the average people. Okay? So, with all that in mind, I hope you guys have a good day. Join my Discord, which was in that file for you, or notify my team in the Valhack, or not Valhack, Jesus. Talking too much anti-cheat here. The Odin Plus team, or my current Discord or even my server's Discord, which is the Valheim VMP experience. Anybody who's a multiverse cheater, which is cross-server cheaters, will be logged to this. This is where that Discord link is going to in the default file. So hopefully this helps. Sorry for the lengthy video, and yeah, everybody have a good day.